Bosch parts, still any good or not? I get a lot of people asking about whether it's okay to still use Bosch parts. And it's a funny question because it's one of those questions that doesn't have an easy yes or no answer. So when you look at Bosch, you think of the company that invented diesel injection or gasoline mechanical injection or perfected the spark plug or the oxygen sensor or analog brakes. But then you also start thinking about some other things, like the company that forces you to buy crappy resistor spark plugs, or that also made your dishwasher as well as your alternator, or the company that can't quite seem to figure out which factory it's going to make spark plug wires in, if it tells you what country that factory is located in at all. And so we're going to talk about Bosch. We're going to talk about the different divisions of Bosch and how to know which Bosch parts are actually any good or not. Let's cover some basic stuff like spark plugs. Most of the time, if I'm buying a Bosch plug, if it's not made in Germany, it's probably junk. For example, the 003, 159, 1003, and 1203 Bosch plugs that Mercedes orders for its M116 and 117 engines are all made in Germany, and they're good plugs. But if you go to WorldPack and you order the same plug using the same Mercedes part number, you're going to get a Russian plug. So right then and there we know that Bosch supplies certain parts to Mercedes and certain parts to the public, which is less demanding than Mercedes Benz is. Same thing with things like Bosch injectors. While Bosch injectors are typically available solely from Bosch, and we're especially talking about K and KE Jetronic injectors, I have been told that prime stock goes to Mercedes and other companies, other OEM manufacturers like Porsche, but the public gets whatever it gets, whatever's left. I think with Bosch, the general rule of thumb is that if it's made in the EU, Germany, Hungary, sometimes Spain, France, like Bosch Duraterm glow plugs, it's okay because Bosch's factories in the EU seem to have higher and better quality standards than Bosch's factories elsewhere. But if you're going into like an AutoZone and you're buying a set of Bosch wires, or if you're going into, if you're browsing around in WorldPack and you end up with a couple different choices for things like Bosch plugs, you might want to use a little bit more caution. I found that items like Bosch fuel filters and brake pads seem to be okay. Where is this made? This is made in Bulgaria, which is still kind of in the EU, sort of. But Hinkst also gets their filters from the same factory in Bulgaria, so they must be okay. Again, the EU rule. As far as items like Bosch Remand alternators and starters, while a lot of folks have issues with those items, the truth is that they're still the best on the market, even though 1 out of every 8 seems to be lacking in performance. But again, with Bosch, it all seems to boil down to the country of production. So I would say that you shouldn't avoid Bosch. Bosch is almost unavoidable. They're sort of like air in this business. You just can't get away from them. But don't throw out the entire brand. They're still a good brand. While some things might be better from other manufacturers, items like electrohydraulic actuators, ignition coils, items rebuilt and made by Bosch Classic, like map sensors for D-Jetronic cars, are all pretty good. And I think Bosch still holds a lot of promise as a brand. Just don't buy their stuff from over-the-counter sources at AutoZone. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you're one of our Patreon members, thank you so much. We're doing our best to be here for you. And if you know somebody who loves Classic Mercedes too, share this video, especially if they don't know what to think about Bosch parts. And remember, again, the basic rule, if it's Bosch made in EU, it's probably safe. Anyway, enjoy working on your Mercedes Benz and buying your own parts. And, you know, remember that not all parts are created equal.